The dim glow of Geseth-Fo's twin moons barely penetrated the dense canopy of its crimson forests. Jagged cliffs rose like shattered glass around the Valari colony nestled in the valley below, a fragile sanctuary carved from the Deathworld wilderness. The settlers had hoped for peace here, far from the reaches of the pirate scourge that ravaged the outer rim systems. But peace was a luxury that slipped away faster than they could grasp. In the central command dome, the air hung thick with dread. Commander Lethra's hands trembled slightly as she stared at the tactical displays flickering with red alerts. Pirate warships, black as nightmares, pierced the atmosphere in twisted formations, their engines belching corrosive smoke. The Valari defenses, shimmering energy shields and sleek fighters, were already stretched thin, desperately attempting to hold a perimeter. Status report. Lethra's voice was calm but brittle. Orbital defenses failing in Sector 6. Ground. Forces under heavy fire near the eastern ridge. Her lieutenant responded, voice tight with exhaustion. Outside, the piercing wails of warning sirens drowned the steady pulse of alarms. The Valari knew this was no raid. They were about to be erased. In the comm room, a solitary technician worked frantically. The console's ancient, worn keys clattered as she prepared a last, desperate message. The Valari never sent distress calls outside their own networks. It was forbidden, too dangerous, too humiliating. But now, with the colony on the brink, the protocol was shattered. The technician's fingers hesitated over the command. She glanced at the screen, then at the face of Commander Lethra, etched with quiet despair. Then, as if surrendering to fate, she pressed the final key. A crackling burst of static shattered the hum of the ship's systems. The distress signal fired out through an archaic channel, one almost forgotten by all but one race, known in whispered dread across the galaxy, humanity, the Deathworlders. The message was simple, raw, and urgent. Help us or we die. Light years away, on a jagged, scorched planet called Terra 9, the Vindicator drifted lazily in orbit around a barren mining colony. The ship looked less like a warship and more like a relic from a brutal past. Heavy, armor plates scarred with battle, and weapon emplacements dark and ready. Captain Elira Voss sat in the command chair, staring at the cracked viewport where storms of dust whipped endlessly across the red plains. She had seen too much death to believe in miracles. Her crew were hardened veterans. Scars, both physical and mental, marked every one of them. But tonight, even the usual hum of the ship's AI failed to soothe her restless mind. Suddenly, the ancient comm channel sparked to life. A piercing, static-laced voice broke through the silence. Distress, colony under attack, pirates, Valari, help. Elira's eyes narrowed. The Valari? Pacifists known for their caution and delicacy, sending a message through a forbidden channel only humans monitored? Something was very wrong. Her fingers flew over the console, amplifying the signal. The message was fragmented but clear. The Valari colony on Geseth-4 was facing annihilation. The pirates had pushed deeper than ever before. Patch it to the bridge, Elira ordered. I want every sensor focused on that system. The crew snapped into action, the bridge lights dimming as sensor sweeps flared. Images of a lush but bloodied planet appeared on the main screen, overlaid with red blips racing toward the colony. One of her lieutenants, a wiry man named Kale, looked up sharply. Captain, pirates moving fast. If we don't jump now, they'll take the colony before reinforcements arrive. Elira's jaw tightened. No reinforcements are coming. The Galactic Concord's bureaucracy will slow them down until it's too late. We're the only ones who can act. She rose, her voice low and fierce. Set course for Geseth-4. Prepare for combat readiness. This isn't a rescue mission. It's a reckoning. Back on Geseth-4, the Valari tried to hold their ground. Their fighters streaked through the blood-red skies, darting between treetops, weaving in desperate dogfights with the ruthless pirate raiders. But their elegant ships, designed for defense and diplomacy, were no match for the pirates' aggressive strike tactics. In the colony's underground bunkers, families huddled listening to the distant thunder of explosions. Commander Lethra's gaze stayed fixed on the sky, hoping beyond hope. The ground trembled as a sudden shockwave rocked the valley. The first Terran drop pods piercing the atmosphere like falling stars, landing with thunderous impact near the front line. Terran soldiers spilled out, clad in black exo-armor that shimmered with active camouflage. Their weapons hummed with lethal promise. Valari watchers on the colony's perimeter gasped in disbelief. They had feared the Deathworlders' arrival. For years, humans had been the galaxy's nightmare, their brutal tactics whispered about in fearful stories. But now, as the Terran troops moved with swift, terrifying precision, the Valari understood. These humans hadn't come to help in kindness. They had come to deliver doom. The horizon blazed with fire and steel. The distant roar of the Vindicator's guns echoed like a grim anthem. Somewhere deep in the jungle, the first pirate screams pierced the night, and across the void, humanity answered the call. The moment the Vindicator breached Gessetherfor's orbital perimeter, a wave of dread rippled through the Valari command center. The Deathworlders had arrived, not as saviors, but as a force no one truly understood, feared even among their allies. Valari sensors blared. Pirate frigates swarmed like black hornets, but their pilots faltered when they glimpsed the bulky Terran warship. The Vindicator was a brutal relic of a forgotten era, armored like a planet cracker, bristling with weapon turrets that could pulverize a moon's surface. Its hull bore scars from decades of conflicts humans called the Great Expulsion, a time when Earth's children fought tooth and claw to survive harsh, unforgiving worlds. "Identify the incoming vessel," the Valari tactical officer demanded, voice tight. The Valari AI responded in its soft, melodic tone. "Human vessel Vindicator. Origin, Terra system. Classification, heavy assault cruiser. Lethality, extreme." Commander Lethra swallowed hard. "Warning the fleet. Human ship entering system. Prepare for hostile engagement." The Valari had no choice but to act. Their fighters scrambled, energy pulses firing as they charged at the Vindicator's massive silhouette. But the humans did not respond with warnings or diplomacy. Their guns flared to life. Turbo lasers tore through pirate skiffs with brutal precision. The Vindicator's weapons burned like white-hot suns, vaporizing swarms before they could regroup. The shockwave from a single broadside tore through the orbital debris field, scattering the wreckage of a dozen pirate fighters. Captain Ilera Voss stood steady on the bridge, her cold gaze never wavering. Her voice, when it came, was calm and sharp. Target pirate command ships. Priority: disrupt their fleet coordination. Her tactical officer, a young woman named Mira, tapped furiously at the holo console. "Target locked, Captain. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The Vindicator released a salvo of guided plasma bolts. They streaked like comets, striking the flagship of Zaltor's fleet dead center. The pirate ship erupted in flames, spinning uncontrollably. Pirate radio chatter erupted in panic. "Deathworlders here. Fall back, fall back." But retreat was impossible. Below in the colony, the Valari watched from observation domes as the Vindicator rained fire upon the attackers. Their faces were a mixture of awe and fear. "This is not rescue," Lethra murmured, watching the brutal efficiency. "This is war." An aide next to her nodded, whispering, "The Deathworlders don't save, they destroy." On the Vindicator, Ilira's voice cut through the roar of the battle. "Deploy drop squads. Surface teams prepare for insertion." The crew moved with practiced discipline. Gravity anchors hummed as armored pods detached and began their fiery descent toward the jungle below. Lieutenant Kyle checked his gear inside his pod, tightening the straps on his helmet. His eyes burned with bitter resolve. "Time to remind the galaxy why they fear us," he muttered. The pod slammed into the dense forest with the force of small meteors. Trees exploded in showers of splinters. Kale's squad spilled out, instantly vanishing into the shadowed undergrowth. Their exo-armor shimmered, blending with the chaotic jungle, deadly ghosts hunting an enemy unprepared for human tactics. Pirates, accustomed to slow, cautious fighting, were met with lightning-fast assaults. Terran soldiers moved in perfect coordination, striking before enemies could even raise their weapons. Kale's squad cut through pirate patrols with brutal efficiency, silent but deadly. Each shot was calculated, every maneuver rehearsed until it was instinct. Elsewhere on the Vindicator, Captain Voss stood before a holomap displaying the pirate strongholds. "Find Zaltor's command center," she ordered. "Destroy it. Make them bleed so badly that no one dares follow." Her second-in-command, Commander Rane, nodded grimly. "We're engaging the pirates' last lines of defense. Resistance is collapsing fast." Illyra's jaw clenched. She'd fought these pirates before in a dozen systems, each fight bloodier than the last. But this wasn't about revenge. This was about sending a message. The galaxy had branded humans as monsters, Deathworlders born of harsh worlds, bred for survival through any means necessary. But they were something more. Protectors of the weak, warriors with scars to prove their will. Back on the Valari colony, whispers began spreading among the survivors. They came not with mercy, an elder said softly, but with fury. "Do you think they will stay?" a young soldier asked. The elder's eyes darkened. "No. They bring doom, but their wrath protects us. Perhaps the galaxy needs a reminder. Sometimes monsters must be unleashed to end true evil." Meanwhile, in the pirate fleet, Zaltor seethed in his flagship's war room. Screens flickered with images of his ships burning. "Those monsters," he snarled, "have no honor, no mercy. They kill like predators, not soldiers." His advisor, a ruthless mercenary, urged caution. "We can retreat, strike elsewhere." Zaltor's fist slammed a console. "No, we crush them here, or we die trying." On the Vindicator, Captain Voss listened to the pirate transmissions with a cold smile. "They called us monsters," she whispered to herself. "Let's remind them what monsters do to their prey." The ship's AI chimed softly. "Weapon systems ready. Awaiting your command." Illyra's hand hovered over the firing console. "Then let's finish the hunt." The stars beyond Gesseth, IV blinked cold and distant. But here, in the heat of war, a brutal truth was unfolding. When the distress call reached the Deathworlders, they didn't send help. They sent doom. The jungle of Gesseth IV was no place for mercy. Towering trees, twisted by centuries of acidic rain, loomed over a forest floor choked with crimson moss and tangled roots. Shadows played tricks, hiding dangers both natural and unnatural. To the Valari, this was home, a world of strange beauty and deadly secrets. To the pirates, it was a hunting ground. To the Terran drop squads, it was a brutal proving ground. Lieutenant Kale's squad moved silently through the undergrowth, their exo-armor camouflaged against the shifting reds and blacks. Each step was calculated, every breath measured. Ahead, the telltale glow of pirate campfires flickered through the trees. Kale raised a hand, signaling the team to halt. "Eyes sharp," he whispered. "Pirates don't expect us here yet." His voice was low but edged with steel. They'd been on countless missions like this, but each one carried the same weight. The weight of lives lost, of vengeance unresolved. "Remember," Kale said, scanning the clearing with thermal optics. "These aren't just pirates. They're killers, slavers. They destroyed homes we swore to protect." Around him, the squad nodded grimly. Each soldier bore scars, both visible and hidden, reminders of battles past, loved ones lost to pirates or worse. "On my mark," Kyle continued, "we hit fast, hit hard, and vanish before they know what's happened." The clearing lay silent, for a heartbeat. Then, with lethal precision, the squad struck. Energy bolts sizzled through the air, cutting down pirates before alarms could sound. Explosions rocked hastily abandoned huts as grenades shredded cover, and scattering fighters fled into the jungle's maw. KL advanced, pistol blazing, heart pounding in rhythm with the carnage. Every shot was personal. Elsewhere, Captain Illyra, Voss watched the battle unfold from the Vindicator's tactical deck. Holo projections showed the ground squads weaving through the hostile terrain, carving paths through pirate lines. "Terran soldiers fight like they've been born for this," Illyra said quietly to Commander Rane. Rane nodded. "They do, and they don't hesitate. Unlike the Concord fleets, these warriors don't wait for orders or permission." Illyra's eyes darkened. "No, they act. They end threats before threats end them. Her gaze shifted to the incoming data stream, a live feed from Kale's squad helmet cam. She saw the determination etched on his face, the rapid bursts of fire, the ruthless efficiency. But she also saw something else. Pain, anger, a fierce refusal to lose. Back on the surface, Kale's squad encountered a group of pirate captives shackled in makeshift cages. Valari colonists stolen from other worlds, faces gaunt, eyes hollow. Kale's voice softened as he approached the prisoners. "We're here to get you out. Stay quiet and you'll live." One captive, a young Valari woman, looked up with wary hope. "The humans, they really came?" Kyle nodded. "We came because we have to, because no one else would." Her eyes shimmered with tears. "We thought you were monsters." Kale's jaw tightened. "Sometimes monsters are the only ones who fight monsters." The pirates regrouped, launching desperate counterattacks to reclaim lost ground. In the chaos, Kale found himself face to face with a hulking pirate captain, blade drawn and eyes wild with rage. The fight was brutal and swift, metal clashing, bodies thrown against trees, the jungle soaked in sweat and blood. Kale's training and instincts kept him alive, but victory came at a cost. Ow. A slash across his arm burned like fire. He gritted his teeth, driving his blade home in a final ruthless strike. As the pirate fell, Kyle whispered, "For every family you destroyed." Meanwhile, Commander Lethra observed the unfolding battle. From the Valari command dome, the brutality of the Terran intervention unsettled her, but the results were undeniable. "They fight with savage honor," she admitted to her aide. "Perhaps, and this is what the galaxy needs, not diplomacy, not delay, but decisive action." Her thoughts drifted to the distress call she'd sent, the forbidden plea that had brought the Deathworlders here. She wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake, or the only choice left. Back aboard the Vindicator, Elira addressed her crew. "This is only the beginning," she said. "The pirates think we're monsters. Let's prove them right. But remember, we fight for those who cannot fight for themselves." Her voice carried through the ship, igniting resolve in every heart. As the night deepened over Geseth IV, the jungle echoed with gunfire and cries. The Valari colonists, once helpless, now glimpsed a fierce protector in the humans. The pirates, once invincible, faced extinction. In this wild, dangerous world, humanity's brutal justice was carving a new legend, a legend born of blood and honor. The jungle on Geseth IV burned with unnatural fire. Alien trees, blackened and shattered, sent twisted shadows flickering across the battlefield. Smoke choked the air, mixing with the acrid tang of explosives and blood. The ground trembled beneath, the thunderous march of pirate reinforcements desperate to turn the tide. Warlord Zaltor stood atop a jagged outcrop overlooking the chaos, his cruel eyes blazing with fury. His dark armor was scarred from countless battles, but his spirit remained unbroken. Around him, shattered remnants of his fleet limped forward. Pirate soldiers with desperate faces, armed with brutal weapons and venomous resolve. "They think they can break us with their machines and monsters," Zaltor growled, voice carrying over the din. "But this is our world. We fight here or we die here." His advisors shuffled nervously nearby. "The humans are relentless, Warlord. Their weapons tear through us like paper. If we hold this ground, it will be our last." Zaltor slammed his fist against a control panel, sending sparks flying. "Then let it be our last stand. Burn everything. Poison the earth if you must. No mercy. No surrender." Below, Terran and Valari forces braced for the onslaught. Captain Elira Voss stood in the command tent, armor stained and battle-weary, but eyes as sharp as ever. "Pirates are massing for a counterattack," her lieutenant warned. "They want to crush us before we can finish this." Elira's voice was steel. "Then we make sure they don't get the chance. All units, hold your lines. Wait for my signal." She moved to the holomap, fingers tracing the choke points in the jungle trails. "This ridge here is our trap," she said. "They'll have to funnel through it. We'll break their charge." The first wave hit like a storm. Pirate warriors, wild and screaming, surged through the dense undergrowth. The earth shook as they charged, brandishing jagged blades and pulse, rifles, their battle cries tearing through the night. Kale's squad was waiting in the shadows, weapons raised. Hold, hold, now, Kale yelled. Terran soldiers opened fire with deadly precision. Bolts of plasma and tracer rounds cut through the oncoming tide, turning the front lines into a maelstrom of flame and steel. Explosions blossomed in the undergrowth as mines detonated, throwing pirates into the air. But for every fallen pirate, 2 more took their place, driven by desperation and fanatic loyalty to Zaltor. On the ridge, Captain Voss fought alongside her soldiers. Her pulse rifle roared, cutting down foes with brutal efficiency. She moved like a shadow, quick, deadly, unrelenting. But the pirates pressed harder, clawing their way up the ridge with savage fury. Blood slicked the rocks, screams of pain and rage mingled with the jungle's harsh symphony. Suddenly, a pirate commander burst through the lines, wielding a vicious energy blade. He lunged at Elira with feral speed. She sidestepped, firing a quick burst that scorched his armor. The pirate growled and charged again, blade flashing. Elira parried, the 2 locked in a deadly dance of steel and fire. Sparks flew as their weapons clashed, each strike ringing out like a death knell. With a sudden brutal twist, Elira disarmed the pirate, sending his blade skittering across the rocks. She drove her rifle butt into his face, knocking him unconscious. Elsewhere, Kale's squad faced their own nightmare. Surrounded on 3 sides, low on ammo, they fought with savage resolve. Kale's arm throbbed with pain from his earlier wound, but he refused to falter. "Keep moving. Don't let them pin us down," he barked. One by one, his squad fell back, covering each other with suppressing fire. When the last of them reached the main line, they collapsed behind the Volari defenders, breath ragged but hearts still burning. At the height of the battle, Zaltor activated his secret weapon, a massive siege mech, towering and bristling with heavy cannons and flamethrowers. The ground shook as it stomped forward, crushing trees and soldiers alike. Elira's eyes narrowed. "Target the mech! Focus everything!" The Vindicator's orbital cannons responded, lancing beams of pure energy toward the towering machine. Explosions rocked the forest as the mech staggered but kept moving, a metallic titan fueled by rage. Elira knew they had only one chance. "Kale, with me," she commanded. "We're going to take that thing down from the inside." The drop pods dropped swiftly amid the chaos, delivering Elira, Kale, and a handful of assault troops right into the mech's shadow. The ground shook violently as they ran, dodging fire and debris. At the mech's base, an armored hatch hissed open. Elira slammed her shoulder into the door controls. It groaned and gave way. Inside was a maze of corridors and glowing conduits, hot, cramped, and deadly. The pirates guarding the control room were fierce, but the Terrans fought like wolves, taking them down swiftly. Elira led the charge, smashing through every defense. Finally, they reached the core. Kyle planted a series of explosive charges, sweat and blood dripping from his bruised face. "Charges set," he whispered. Elira nodded. "Get out! Now!" They raced back through the winding corridors, alarms blaring behind them. Outside, the mech lurched and exploded in a cataclysm of fire and metal, collapsing in a heap of molten wreckage. The pirates' last hope died with it. As dawn bled into the sky, the jungle fell eerily silent. Zaltor, bloodied and beaten, retreated with the remnants of his forces. The Vindicator's guns boomed a warning. This was the end of the pirate reign on Geseth 4. Captain Voss stood on the ridge, watching the smoke curl into the sky. "We didn't come to save them," she said quietly, "but to remind the galaxy. What happens when you send a distress call?" Kale, beside her, nodded grimly. "We sent doom, and it found them." Far below, the Volari survivors emerged from hiding, eyes wide with disbelief and cautious hope. The war was far from over. But on this world, the Deathworlders had left their mark. The fires of Geseth 4's battlefield still smoldered, the scent of burned wood and scorched flesh hanging heavy in the air. The Deathworlders' brutal justice had shattered the pirate horde, but the war's echoes stirred ripples far beyond, the crimson forests. High above the planet, in the gleaming halls of the Galactic Concorde's flagship Arbitrium, A council convened behind sealed blast doors and holographic displays. The mood was tense, shadows flickering across austere faces draped in finely embroidered uniforms and ceremonial robes. Ambassador Celine Marion, Velari envoy and survivor of the pirate siege, stood quietly at the edge of the chamber. Her voice, usually melodic and measured, was edged with urgency. "They sent Deathworlders," she stated plainly. "The humans arrived without Concord sanction, without warning. They crushed the pirates, yes, but at what cost? Their methods are extreme." A human delegate, Commander Rane from the Vindicator, leaned forward. His tone was clipped, uncompromising. "We answered a distress call that no one else dared heed. The Velari begged for help, we gave it. If the Concord can't protect its citizens, who will?" the council murmured uneasily. The Galactic Concord was a vast political and military alliance, but its bureaucracy was slow, its mandate cautious. The arrival of humans, renowned for their savage efficiency, upended the fragile balance. Councillor Draxus, a towering figure with cold eyes, spoke with measured disdain. "The Deathworlders' intervention threatens the diplomatic order. They act as judge, jury, and executioner. This sets a dangerous precedent." Celine's gaze hardened. "The pirates have terrorized border worlds for decades. The Concords. Inertia allowed this massacre to unfold. The humans saved lives." "Saved lives with violence," Draxus retorted. "At what price? We must consider the political fallout." Back on Geseth 4, the Velari colony began the slow, painful process of rebuilding. Commander Lethra walked through the shattered settlement, her steps heavy with mixed relief and lingering dread. The Velari had survived, but their world was forever changed. A new reality had arrived with the Deathworlders. She found Kale inspecting the perimeter defenses. His arm was bandaged, but his expression was calm, almost unreadable. "We owe you everything," she said quietly. "Without your intervention." Kyle shook his head. "We didn't come to save you for thanks. We came because the galaxy needs to remember what happens when evil goes unchecked." Lethra regarded him thoughtfully. "Your people, you are feared across the stars." Kale's lips twitched in a bitter smile. "Fear keeps the peace sometimes, but we don't seek to rule. We seek balance. We are what the galaxy needs when no one else will act." Meanwhile, aboard the Vindicator, Captain Elira Voss reviewed incoming transmissions from the Concord. Their tone was cold and formal. Requests for cooperation, demands for explanations, veiled threats. The council wanted to reassert control. Elira slammed her fist on the table. "They want us to stand down, to let the bureaucracy dictate when and how we act." Her Lieutenant Mira looked up, concern flickering in her eyes. "If we don't comply, we risk becoming outlaws." Elira's gaze hardened. "Then so be it. We answered a call for help no one else would touch. We'll keep fighting on our terms." On the Arbitrium, the council debated a fragile compromise. Councillor Draxus proposed a joint task force, a Concord-led peacekeeping contingent to oversee Geseth IV and prevent further unilateral actions. Some members nodded in agreement, eager to reassert order. Ambassador Celine cautioned, "If we drive the humans away, the pirates will return. The colony will fall." Rane's image flickered on the council's holoscreen. "Then we fight until they cannot." Back on the ground, tensions simmered between Velari survivors and the Terran soldiers. Some Velari viewed the humans as saviors. Others whispered of the cost, the brutal methods, the merciless strikes. Lethra confronted these doubts head-on. In a tense council meeting, "Do we accept their help or turn away and wait for the Concord's slow justice?" she asked. One elder, voice trembling, answered, "Their fury saved us. But what of tomorrow? Will the Deathworlders stay? Will their wrath become our chains?" Kale's voice cut through the room. "Freedom isn't free. It's carved from struggle and sacrifice." As the sun set over Geseth IV, Captain Voss stood once more on the ridge where the last battle had raged. Below, the colony flickered, with tentative life, shadows lengthening in the dusk. She whispered to the stars. We came for the distressed. But now, we stand ready for whatever comes next. Because in a galaxy that feared monsters, sometimes monsters were the only hope left. The sleek corridors of the Galactic Concord flagship Arbitrium hummed with quiet tension. Behind polished walls and bright holo displays, the fragile unity of the Alliance was cracking. The Deathworlders' violent intervention on Gesseth 4 had unsettled centuries of cautious diplomacy, and the ripples of unease were spreading fast. Ambassador Celine Emerion stood with her arms folded, her delicate Velari features hard as stone. Beside her, Commander Rane's stance was rigid, his piercing gaze refusing to waver. Across the chamber, Counselor Draxus paced like a caged predator, each step echoing the discord in the room. The humans operate outside the Concord's authority, Draxus declared. Their actions risk igniting conflicts we cannot contain. We must demand their withdrawal and submit to our regulations. Rane's voice was sharp as a blade. You want to abandon a world in chaos to your bureaucratic games? Velari lives were at stake. We acted because no one else would. Celine's eyes flickered with frustration. Commander, your method saved us, but the Concord's response must be measured. We cannot allow unilateral force to undermine the Alliance's foundations. A murmur of agreement rippled through the Council. The discord was more than political. It was a philosophical clash over the nature of order, justice, and survival. Back on Gesseth 4, the uneasy peace was fragile as smoke. Commander Lethra met with Kael near the colony's central command. The scars of battle still marked the landscape, and every face bore the weight of loss and fear. We've won the fight, Lethra said quietly, but the war for our future has only begun. Kael's gaze was steady. The Concord will pressure you to reject us, to side with their order over survival. Lethra's jaw clenched. And if we refuse? Kael's answer was grim. Then you'll be caught between the hammer and the anvil, the Concord's fleets and the pirates' shadows. The Vindicator's bridge was tense. Captain Elira Voss studied the encrypted communications streaming in, a torrent of Concord demands, veiled threats, and desperate pleas from Velari leadership caught in the middle. Commander, she said to Rane, the Concord wants us out. They're sending peacekeepers. But we're the only shield this world has. Rani nodded. If they land before we're ready, they'll force a ceasefire. The pirates will regroup, and the colony falls. Elira's fingers drummed on the console. Then we don't wait for permission. We act. We fight. In the colony, Velari citizens gathered, voices rising in heated debate. The council chambers were thick with tension as survivors argued over the future. We owe our lives to the humans, a young Velari shouted. They saved us when the Concord stood silent. But at what cost? An elder countered. Their ways are brutal. If we let them stay, do we not lose ourselves, our identity? Lethra raised her hand, silencing the room. We face a choice, cling to old ideals and risk extinction, or embrace the harsh reality the Deathworlders bring. A hush fell. The colony's future, and perhaps the fate of the system, hung in the balance. Meanwhile, on the Arbitrium, Counselor Draxus unveiled a new strategy. We will deploy a rapid response fleet, he declared. Enforce a ceasefire, disarm the Terran forces, and reassert Concord control. Celine stepped forward, her voice steady but urgent. That fleet may spark a war. The Velari trust the humans. Removing them by force could destroy fragile alliances. Draxus smiled coldly. Then, we will remind them whose law governs the stars. In the depths of space, the Concord fleet made its approach to Gesseth IV, a shimmering wall of warships bearing the weight of imperial authority. On the Vindicator, Captain Voss watched the ships draw closer. They think they can intimidate us with their numbers. Rene's tone was grim. We'll show them what Deathworlders can do when cornered. As the conquered fleet entered orbit, tense negotiations began, but beneath the diplomatic veneer, the threat of violence simmered. The Velari colony was caught in a web of shifting loyalties. Some hoped the Concord's arrival would bring stability. Others feared it would mean subjugation or worse. Lithra found herself torn. Could she trust the humans who had saved her world? Could she trust the Concord who now sought to control it? In a darkened chamber of the Vindicator, Illyra and Kale met in quiet conversation. "We came to help," Illyra said, voice low. "But if the Concord forces us out, we lose more than a battle. We lose the chance to protect those who can't protect themselves." Kale nodded. "Then we prepare, because the real fight is just beginning." The stars above Geseth IV were silent witnesses to a galaxy on the edge, where alliances could shatter with a single spark, and monsters might be the only hope against the coming storm. The polished halls of the Galactic Concord flagship Arbitrium thrummed with tension as the envoy's message was dispatched to the Vindicator and the Valari colony below. The Council's voice was cold, its mandate clear. "Withdraw your forces immediately from Geseth IV. Cease all offensive actions against pirate factions. Submit to Galactic Concord Peacekeeping Authority or face full military sanction." The ultimatum echoed through the corridors of the Vindicator. Captain Illyra Voss stood rigid, jaw clenched as she stared at the cold words flickering across the hollow display. "Withdraw?" she scoffed. "After everything we've done? After the blood we've spilled?" Commander Rane's eyes burned with grim resolve. "They want to hand this world back to the pirates, to let the Valari die under bureaucratic indifference. We can't let that happen." Across the comm channel, Ambassador Celine Marion's voice trembled with the weight of impossible choices. "Captain Voss, the Concord offers us protection, peacekeeping forces to stabilize Geseth IV. This is our chance for safety." Lithra's voice followed, steady but burdened. "If we resist, we risk war not just with pirates but with the entire Concord fleet." Illyra's fingers clenched into fists. "We didn't come here to negotiate terms, we came to end a nightmare." On the ground, the Valari colony held a tense assembly. The survivors, exhausted and fearful, debated fiercely. Some pleaded for cooperation with the Concord, believing order might bring healing. Others, hardened by loss and inspired by the Deathworlders' fierce defense, called for resistance. Lithra rose to speak. Her voice carried the weight of leadership and a vision forged in fire. "The Concord's peace is a cage. Their rules handcuff those who fight for survival. We stand at a crossroads. We can submit and risk losing everything, or stand with those who fought when all others fled." A murmur of agreement swept through the chamber. Kale stepped forward, his arm healed but his spirit raw. "We know what it means to be abandoned, to be left for dead. We will not turn away now." Back aboard the Vindicator, Captain Voss convened her officers. "We have one choice," she said grimly. "Prepare for war." Tactical screens lit with battle plans and force deployments. Weapons were primed, drop squads rehearsed their strikes. Every soldier felt the tension. A war with the Galactic Concord was a war against the galaxy itself. In orbit, the Concord fleet loomed, a shimmering armada of sleek warships, cruisers bristling with weaponry, fighters buzzing like angry hornets. "Counselor," Draxus appeared in a hollow transmission, voice icy and uncompromising. "This is your final warning. Withdraw or be destroyed." Illyra's retort was sharp. "We won't abandon those who cannot defend themselves." The first shots came in the dead of night. Concord frigates unleashed precision strikes on Vindicator's outer defenses. The Deathworlders responded with ferocity, their counterfire ripping through enemy fighters. The colony below braced as Concord Marines attempted orbital insertions. Valari and Terran soldiers fought side by side in brutal skirmishes amid the ruins. On the battlefield, Kale led a desperate counterattack to repel a Concord landing zone. The ground shook as explosions ripped through the forest. Pirates surprisingly took advantage of the chaos, launching guerrilla attacks from the shadows. "Enemies on all sides," Kale shouted over the roar. Bullets and energy blasts tore through the thick undergrowth. Kale's squad fought with lethal precision, buying time for civilians to evacuate. Meanwhile, Captain Voss engaged in a dangerous gamble. She authorized a strike team to infiltrate the Concorde flagship's communications core, aiming to disrupt their coordination and buy critical hours. Elira led the mission herself, slipping aboard the massive ship under cloak of darkness. The corridors were silent, patrolled by disciplined but unaware Concorde troops. Inside the ship, Elira's team moved with deadly stealth. They planted charges and hacked communication arrays, but a patrol cornered them before they could complete their sabotage. A fierce firefight erupted in the narrow passageways, echoing through the ship's steel bones. Elira fought fiercely, her pulse rifle blazing. She covered her team's retreat, sacrificing safety for success. The charges detonated, plunging the Arbitrium into chaos and silence. Back on Geseth IV, the battle raged into dawn. Kale and Lethra watched the horizon as the conquered fleet faltered, their communications in disarray. "We buy ourselves time," Kale said grimly, "but the conquered won't stop coming." Lethra nodded. "Then we prepare to fight, not just for this world, but for every world that calls for help and finds none." As the sun rose over a scarred but unbroken planet, the Valarian Deathworlders steeled themselves for a war that would test the limits of loyalty, honor, and survival. The galaxy was watching, and the distress call had become a call to arms. The twin sons of Geseth IV climbed high over the battered jungle, casting long shadows on the ruins of what was once a thriving colony. The air was thick with smoke, dust, and the lingering tension of impending war. The distant roar of the conquered fleet still echoed in orbit, but below, the final chapter was about to be written. Captain Elira Voss stood on the ridge overlooking the Valari settlement, eyes scanning the horizon. Her armor was scarred, her face marked by exhaustion, but her spirit burned with unyielding resolve. Beside her, Kale tightened his grip on his pulse rifle, muscles coiled like a predator ready to strike. "This ends today," Elira said quietly, voice steady. "They came with fleets and orders, but they didn't count on us." Lethra stepped forward, Valari grace sharpened by hardship. "We fight for our future, our freedom." Together, below them, the combined forces of Terran Deathworlders and Valari warriors prepared for the Concorde's final assault. The jungle was transformed into a labyrinth of traps and fortified positions. Fallen trees were rigged with explosives. Narrow paths lined with sniper nests. Every inch of the terrain turned into a deadly fortress. "Concord won't expect this level of resistance," Kale muttered. "They think we're weak. They don't know the death they've invited." The first wave hit at midday. Concord dropships tore through the sky, disgorging Marines armed with heavy weapons and state-of-the-art tech. Their advance was methodical, ruthless. But the defenders were ready. Mines exploded. Snipers picked off. Officers and guerrilla squads flanked the invaders. The jungle erupted in chaos, a brutal cacophony of gunfire and cries. Elira led a charge against a heavily fortified Concorde landing zone. Her pulse rifle sang death as she cut through the enemy ranks. Every step forward was paid for with blood, but retreat was not an option. Kale's squad moved through the undergrowth, striking with lethal precision. He caught sight of a Concord officer barking orders and dispatched him with a silent shot. "Break their command," Kyle said into comms. "They'll falter." But the Concorde fleet was relentless. Orbital bombardments rained down, flattening trees and forcing the defenders to withdraw. Lethra coordinated evacuations and medical aid, her calm presence steadying those around her. "We hold the line," she said, "no matter the cost." Deep within the Arbitrium, still reeling from sabotage, Counselor Draxus raged. "How dare they defy us?" he snarled. "Crush them. End this insubordination." A secondary assault fleet launched fresh and deadly. The defenders faced overwhelming odds. One by one, Terran and Valari soldiers fell, but their spirit never wavered. Kyle found himself cornered in a ruined temple with a handful of survivors. Blaster fire tore through the crumbling stone as Concord troops advanced. "Hold fast," he shouted. "For Geseth, for freedom." Explosions rocked the structure, dust choking the air. When the smoke cleared, Kale and the survivors emerged battered but alive. On the ridge, Elira confronted Counselor Draxus personally during a desperate, last-ditch infiltration mission. Their duel was fierce, Steel clashed with pulse rifle fire amid the flickering glow of control room consoles. "You're a monster," Elira hissed. "Monsters keep the peace." Draxus shot back. With a final surge, Elira disabled the counselor's defenses and forced him to surrender. As word of Draxus's capture spread, the Concord fleet hesitated. Without their iron-willed leader, chaos rippled through their ranks. The Vindicator's guns roared, breaking the enemy's resolve. One by one, conquered ships withdrew, limping from the battlefield. In the aftermath, silence settled over Geseth 4. The Valari colony lay scarred, but alive. The Deathworlders stood watchful, guardians at the edge of an uncertain peace. Ambassador Celine spoke at a hastily convened Galactic Concord summit. "We have seen the cost of indecision. We have seen what happens when help arrives too late." "Or too cruel?" She paused, looking to Elira and Kale standing among the Valari survivors. "The galaxy must change. We must find balance between law and survival, between order and justice." Captain Voss nodded. "Sometimes justice comes with a price." Kale added, "And sometimes, doom is what the galaxy needs to wake up." The distress call had brought the Deathworlders, and with them, a reckoning. The pirates were broken, the Valari were free, and the galaxy had learned a harsh lesson. In the void, when no one else answers, doom will come. The end.